Good morning, everybody. What do you think of that video of that guy rubbing his eyes and looking through his glasses, trying to see clearly? Boy, I don't know about you, but this whole weekend has been wild, and it's only Sunday morning. I feel like I rubbed my eyes multiple times yesterday, thinking, "Is this actually what's really happening out there?" And so before we even really go anywhere with us today, I just want to ask that you would hold in prayer the family of Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and also for healing for Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Prayers for all of their family and for actually all of us during this time. Prayers that they find the person who did this. And I don't know what else to say other than that. Well, actually, I have a lot to say today. And in full disclosure to you, this sermon was really started writing last Monday because I had annual conference this week that all United Methodist clergy in Minnesota have to attend. And although I whine about it a little bit, it actually was extremely powerful this week because our bishop, Lynette Planbeck, had a lot to say about our current time. If you're curious about that, go to the church's Facebook page. You can see what she wrote yesterday and what she wrote, some of what she wrote this week. She is very serious business, and I feel completely supported and actually protected by that because I speak out pretty clearly too, most all the time, as you all know. But annual conference was a great experience and difficult experience. And so that changed my thinking a little bit about today's sermon, but yesterday really had an impact on me. In the morning, I was reviewing and working on a few things because annual conference takes all of 3 days. And I saw the news about what had happened to Representative Hortman and John Hoffman. Um, and for a little while, I was stunned. I felt like I just couldn't even breathe or move, fight or flight or freeze, they say sometimes. Well, I froze. It took me a while to even kind of get going. Yes, Mary, thank you. And good morning to all of you as well. It took me a while to even kind of process exactly what was occurring. And partially because I got a text message from my daughter, and she just asked, "Are you still planning to go to protest today?" And I said, "I'm not sure," because frankly, we were starting to see, hey, don't go in Minnesota. And I have great respect for all of you who did go. Trust me, I do. I held back. But part of that is because I was so deeply stunned by the fact that my daughter was inside the search perimeter. She and her husband live in North Minneapolis, and there were SWAT team vehicles on their street. They say that things don't really affect you until it affects someone close to you or yourself. I mean, this affected me, but that really caused a knot in my stomach. I felt sick yesterday morning about what was happening. And again, to see the protests yesterday, amazing. I held back from the protests yesterday. My stomach couldn't do it. But if you think about it, we're standing in protest every day. We are protesting the things that are happening. We are protesting hate and division every Tuesday when we welcome all people for food, all people. We are standing in protest every Friday and every second Sunday, and sit right now. Actually, I speak in protest this morning and every Sunday. And you have to know that about me. But yesterday was a very difficult day, and I think you all would agree. So this morning at 5 o'clock, I split this sermon into two, and it might very well end up being three. So if I'm a little disjointed or a little odd today, well, I'm always odd. So let's go with it. Please pray with me. Gracious God, be with us in this time. We need you. Amen. I want to talk about the passage I was intending to talk about because I just honestly don't know how it could possibly be more relevant. Matthew 7, 1 through 5. This is the next section in the Sermon on the Mount that we've been working on now for months. And here are the words of Jesus according to NRSVUE. Do not judge so that you may not be judged. Trust me, we're going to pick this apart, probably for 2 weeks, maybe 3. For the judgment you give will be the judgment you get, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. And then he says these words: why do you see the speck in your neighbor's eye, but do not notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your neighbor, let me take the speck out of your eye while the log is still in your own eye? And then this is how it's translated. We'll get to this, trust me, probably not today. You hypocrite, those words right there. First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. There are a lot of things to consider with this verse, and after I created these slides this morning, or finished them at 5 o'clock, there are more I thought of even in the shower and on the way. Things to consider. How do we interpret the first verse? What's the root meaning of the word judge? What kinds of things might be logs in our own eyes? Is it ever appropriate to help a friend with their speck? Because, oh my gosh, it has to be. And again, what does the word hypocrite mean? There's all kinds of things in this passage that are problematic. Okay. And at the root of the problems that we have with this passage is this: we take it to mean something different than what it does mean. We take it to mean, well, I can't judge, or it's a sin to judge. And that is actually not what this passage is saying. That's not what this, there's so many layers of messed up on this. We just have to talk it through. I have believed that that's what this passage was saying. I have believed that if I judged another person, then God would condemn me to hell. I have believed that in my life, and I am so thankful to be free from that belief, because I just do not believe that is what God is saying here at all. And I don't believe that's God, not the God of love. Because this statement, oh, I can't judge, or I shouldn't judge, or oh, it's a sin to judge. Lord knows I have a million logs in my eyes, so I shouldn't judge. It can very quickly lead us to avoid the avoidable. It can lead us to avoid conversations that we need to have with people because we love them and we're concerned about them. Okay? Sometimes we need to say, you have a speck in your eye, I think. But we'll get to this. Just stay with me on this, okay? So I want to offer you what this might mean in the beginning, and I want to offer you an overview of what I'm going to talk about today and what I'll talk about next Sunday. And I don't actually know how many Sundays, because there's so much to unpack here and there's so much going on in our world, okay? But I want to offer you the summary because I have this fear that some of you won't be available to be a part of next Sunday, and then you'll miss the core overall meaning that I'm trying to say. And I will probably repeat this summary next week, and I don't know how long, but when you do a series like this, there's always a danger that somebody will miss one or two of the weeks involved and miss the gist of the whole thing. So I want to offer a summary of what I'm going to talk about in greater depth next week, maybe the following week, okay? Here's our summary. The word judge has two meanings in this passage. I will flesh this out for you and prove it. It can be seen as either discern is very different, or then judge, the way we think of it today, or condemn. Condemn is something entirely different. Many scholars believe that Jesus is saying that we are not to condemn another person, but there are times when it's okay to, in love, discern. Help someone discern. Jesus is also saying that we need to take time to carefully and prayerfully consider our own perception before we talk with someone else about our concern for them. I could offer you a million examples of logs that I have in my eye that I need to see and deal with before I consider what I can see in someone else, okay? Or in tandem, intention. So we will talk about that more next week. I want you to note how this passage ends. It is very, very important. This is the last verse of that passage. First, take the log out of your own eye, which in many cases isn't really possible. Sometimes the barriers we have to clear thinking and seeing are not always going to just go away, okay? And then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. Note, it does not say, friend, you've got so many logs in your eye, you'll never be able to clear them out, so just forget about judging someone else. It does not say that. It says to deal with the logs in your eye. It says to deal with them. It does say, first, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. It doesn't say you have specks in your eye, never talk about your friend's speck. It does not say that. It does say deal with yourself and then in love, talk with the other person. You follow me? This is an instruction on how to handle concern, not an instruction to never judge. Listen, it's important right now, friends, because we have friends and family who hold views right now that I personally believe are damaging. And sometimes in love, we need to have the courage with caution and prayer to say it. See, Jesus is building to a teaching that occurs in verse 12, and it could easily be the most famous teaching of Jesus. See, I can't figure out why there are laws now in some states to put the Ten Commandments up on the wall in schools and not this. It seems to me this is what should be on the wall in the school first. In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you. For this is the law and the prophets. I think this is what should be on the wall in the school. Jesus teaching about judging others is building up to this clear point that he makes. It is very important that you see that. So when he offers that teaching about judging or discerning or condemning and being cautious with how you do it, he is doing it in the realm of how we treat each other. Back to my point. This is not about being afraid of hell. This is about being afraid of a hateful community or avoiding or working with to see that we don't develop hateful community. Stay with me, okay? It's important for you to know that specks in our eyes hurt us. If I have a speck in my eye, if I am doing something that is damaging myself or someone else, please talk with me about it. If you're in a relationship with someone who loves you, loves you to the best of their ability, and they bring something to you like a speck in your eye, at least listen. At least listen. At minimum, pray over it. Think about it, ponder it, talk to your therapist about it, whatever it is. If you have a speck in your eye, it hurts. We need help with those things. And next Sunday, I want to talk more fully about that specific piece of this passage, like what kinds of things might create those logs in our own eyes. What kinds of things might bend our ability to see another person more clearly? Okay, so that's next Sunday. But today, I want to deal with one of the other things I kind of ran around with here is, does God really judge us if we do this wrong? Does God judge us if we try to talk with a friend about a speck in their eye and we're maybe not as kind as we should be, or we still have sin or wrongness or difficulty in our own life? Does God judge us if we do this wrong? Okay. And does it mean that if we talk with another person about a concern that we have, that we will be judged for all our sins and end up in eternal conscious torment, which in other words is hell? If you think about hell that way. And I'm going to say emphatically, no, that is not what this passage is saying. I'm convinced. Stay with me. Look at the first two verses of this passage again. It's really important. Do not judge, lest you be judged, so that you may not be judged. For the judgment you give will be the judgment you get, and the measure you give will be the measure you get. But here is a little bit more accurate way of saying it, because the word for judge has changed meaning, probably since this was originally translated into English and moved forward and whatever. We think of judging as just a side eye, right? That is not what this is about. So more accurately to Jesus' words, probably, most likely, a lot of scholars agree on this, okay? Even some conservative ones agree on this. Do not condemn. Now, that's not my place, for sure. So that you may not be condemned. For the condemnation you give will be the condemnation you get. Would you think about that in a broader scope? Remember that this is building up to that passage in Matthew 7:12. This is only 12 verses later. In that thing Jesus says, in everything do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets. So when Jesus says, do not judge, what he is really saying is, if you condemn other people, then they'll condemn you. And in time, you will create a culture of condemnation. Now tell me, is this not relevant today? It was relevant yesterday, and it will always be relevant, but man, is this timely. If you condemn other people, they will condemn you in return, and we'll all condemn each other. And that does not make for a good life or a good world or healthy humanity at all. That's not kingdom of love. But if you love each other enough to carefully and prayerfully discern, and by prayerfully, I mean through your own thought, your own centering, your own meditation, your own personal processing, your own spiritual and mental health and emotional health. If you'll be willing to love each other enough to think through everything you might have in the way or a barrier or whatever, and then share a concern you have with someone that you love, you will build a culture of love and trust, and we will all do better. Healthy concern is not judgment that will send you to hell. Do you hear me? That is not what Jesus is teaching. Jesus is teaching that we need to love each other. Let me recap this and put it in bold for you. Jesus is not saying God will condemn you to hell if you discern something that may need to be addressed or even think of condemning another person. This is not what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying how you treat other people will come back to you. Together, we can create heaven on earth, or we can create hell on earth. What do you think is happening in a lot of places right now? Where do we lean today? So, in light of what happened yesterday, we all know what it was, right? This horrific act of violence. And now, this person that we're looking for, even though some brands of news media, I'll use that lightly, some loud opinions that have channels on their own are trying to make this guy out to be what I heard referred to this morning as libtard. Heard it. Unfortunately, he was a preacher, but by all accounts so far, I mean, obviously there's more to learn, but this was a guy who preached very clearly on condemnation of people who are a part of the LGBTQ community, especially transgender people. What kind of culture are we creating right now? So this was someone who at one point in time in their life represented, or so he thought, Jesus, and functioned as a preacher. And now we are told that he is a Christian nationalist, intent on making sure that everybody complies with what he considers God's laws and rules for all of us. How did he get like this? Where did this come from? We've got to think it through, friends, because I can't be sure about your life, but I can tell you that in mine, I have contributed with my beliefs and sometimes my words and my actions to the culture that created this kind of violence towards people who are just different. And I just can't stomach it. I can't. I have to do something about it. I supported churches that held these views that hurt people. I worked in them. And just, do you see it? This all begs some very, very core questions. And this is one of the things that came up at annual conference this week. And I will go much more in depth with some words on this too in the coming weeks. Who is God to you? How do you perceive God, and what is God's primary attribute? I want to give credit to the Reverend Dr. Tim Eberhart, who I will talk more about, who we got to see speak at annual conference this week. It was just amazing. I mean, he just blew me away. Just blew me away. My fingers couldn't fly fast enough taking notes. Honestly, I haven't even had time to process all of it because this was just 2 days ago. But you'll hear more about this. These core questions come up, and he talked in his talk on Friday afternoon, uh, or morning, I don't remember now, some of the roots of our faith traditions. And this is absolutely critical, friends. It is what guides and drives how you see Jesus and how you see our function on this earth as people who would even think about following after Jesus. Because if you're trying to follow after that guy's Jesus and you've distanced yourself from that, I don't blame you a bit. There's another Jesus. Okay, hear me out. So, John Calvin, who essentially was the founder of the Presbyterian Church, and that led to the Reformed Church, and that fed into the system that created a lot of the evangelical church and some of the traditions that have built Christian nationalism. Okay, the primary attribute of God to John Calvin, that God is power. God is power. And again, this goes to Dr. Tim Eberhart. God is power. That is the thing you need to know most about God, according to Calvin. However, I'm United Methodist, and this church is United Methodist, and United Methodists believe that John Wesley's teaching was more on the mark. John Wesley was the founder of the United Methodist movement that accidentally became a church. Truthfully, I'm telling you, and I'll have a lot more to say about John Wesley's view on this because I got some great quotes on Friday that, frankly, I just didn't even have time to shift into this. Wesley believed that God's primary attribute is love, that God is love. And the reason God is powerful is because love is powerful. Just process this for a minute. Chew on it a minute. This matters a lot. If you see God as a power to be feared, that is very different than if you see God as love. Very different. And how you will respond in this world to all kinds of situations. Hi, Jay. How you will live out your life, how you even think about Christianity, how you represent Christianity, how you talk about it. It just go back to this question right here. What is God's primary attribute to you? Because if God is a God just to be feared and avoided, be careful not to get sent to hell, the arbiter of who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. If that's God's whole function in this world, then that is very, very different than God is loving and love is powerful. That's a whole different way of thinking about things, and it matters a lot. So I told you yesterday morning I was stuck at home, just kind of stunned by everything happening. And I did not go to a protest. Perhaps I should have. But instead, Eric and I got the courage up in the afternoon to go to the Stone Arch Bridge Festival. Yeah, yeah, Mary, thank you. So I went to the Stone Arch Bridge Festival down in Minneapolis yesterday, and we're walking along looking at stuff, and I'm still just it's kind of dazed and confused, frankly, kind of just emotionally exhausted. And there was this group preaching on the side of the street. And I took pictures of them, but they started like really staring at me. And at one point, one guy pointed me out to one of the other guys. So I thought they're uncomfortable with me taking pictures. I probably shouldn't get too obnoxious right now because I really wanted to walk up to them and say, dudes, I think you're wrong about God. It wasn't the time and place for that. They were very loud, preaching, yelling about how we're all going to hell and we will be condemned. And if you, handing out tracts, I mean, just people were just disgusted by it, frankly. Okay. But here's the words that really grabbed me across one of the signs on the bottom. None of these that are pictured here. Okay. None of these that are here. Across one of the signs, it said these three words. And I wish I'd been able to get a picture of it, but I would have had to have been pretty obnoxious. Across the bottom of one of the signs, it said, "Fear God." And it was the first thing represented. This tells you exactly where their tradition goes back to. Fear God, love God, obey God. I'm surprised they even put love in there. Fear God, obey God. Do you see how that's different from love God and love each other? It's a completely different way of thinking about faith. It put so much clarity in my mind to hear these guys screaming at people who were just trying to, and as you can imagine, it's something like the Stone Arch Bridge Festival. It's a very diverse group. Many people still carrying or wearing their protest signs. Broke my heart. If God's primary attribute, like the most important thing about God, is power, then think of what that implies. Think of what that means. Then you, as a follower of Jesus, are supposed to represent Jesus with power. And if God's primary power is to determine whether you make it into heaven or hell, then you're supposed to do that too. You're supposed to warn people about how dangerous God is when you die. You're supposed to warn people that they're heading. I remember this metaphor from years ago, that they're standing on a train track and the train is coming, their death. And you need to get them you need to help them see that in order to avoid God's hell, do you see what I'm saying? If God's power is all about whether or not people go to heaven or hell, then your job is different than if God is love. If God is love, that's an entirely different kind of faith. If God is love, then our job isn't to scare people. Our job is to love people. Our job is to care for each other. Our job is to create a healthy, loving culture. Do you see the difference? So when Jesus offers his teaching about specks and logs, discernment and condemnation, is he saying more than anything, you should be afraid of God? So don't judge each other. No, and I'd stake my life on it because I see the damage that view does. And I do not believe that God created humanity just to damage it. I do not believe that. I don't believe that this is some dumb kind of test to see who makes it and who doesn't. And I do not believe that God created all of humanity just to know ahead of time who was actually going to be good to him and love him and honor and worship him in the power and majesty that he is. I do not believe those things. I'd stake my life on it. I believe that God is love. I really do, and it matters. And frankly, if you still hold views that can support what's happening in our world, in our country right now, please consider your spec. Please. I care about you enough to say that out loud. When Jesus offers this teaching about specks and logs, discernment and condemnation, he is saying, listen, love will become more love, and hate will become more hate. If you don't believe me, click on the news. You have to believe me. Love becomes more love. Hate becomes more hate. I actually believe this is what Jesus is trying to teach us here. If you create a culture of condemnation, then that is what you will have. And we have that in so many ways. Next week, I want to talk more about what might be the logs in our eyes that create problems for us being in healthy relationship with each other, okay? How we see God really matters. If you believe that God is love, let that filter through every other belief that you hold. Let that be the base, the root, the core of everything that grows forth from your life, from your mind, from your attitude, from your mindsets, to the way you talk about God, the way you represent Jesus, and the way you think about the Bible, to who you support in political office. All of it. If you believe that God is love, then it needs to permeate every part of your being, and your life will be so different if you let that happen. Love creates more love, and hate creates more hate. We have to love. Is God actually love first before fear or power or hate? Is that? And if that's true to you, then any way that you read the Bible or interpret the Bible, especially Jesus' words, I'm going to say here, Jesus is always teaching about love, even if it doesn't sound like that in the way that you have been taught to read it. Jesus is always teaching about love, always at the core of every bit of it, even when he is critical of the religious leaders around him. He is dealing with their specs because he loves people enough to say it. Integrity matters. Integrity matters in your belief system and in mine. Are we going to be people of love? I hope so, friends, because I think that's the only chance that humanity has, frankly. And what's happening right now in our country, we simply must de escalate because it's costing people their lives in so many ways, not just the two that were lost yesterday, and hopefully two that will recover. But can you imagine the pain that their families are feeling? The fear that we're all experiencing because they have not caught this person yet. And he had a long list. Integrity matters. Love has to be love all the way through. So friends, I just encourage you, think through what you believe, what you say, who you support, where you donate, everything. Think through all of it. And if you have rejected Christianity or Jesus because you were taught that God is power and anger and judgment, I'm sorry. I was taught that too. And I'm thankful to have toughed through it to find the Jesus I think was always there, that still small voice that just loves and so desperately wants for us to learn how to love each other so desperately. I really do believe, friends, that the most literal thing in the Bible is that God is love and love is God. And I'm sorry if you've been taught otherwise. I don't believe those things anymore. I'm sorry if I taught you otherwise. I might have. God is love, and that's what we need. And we really need it like now. Okay, sorry, a bit passionate today. I think this matters so much. And I just want to encourage you, come back next Sunday. There's more to say about this, there's more to think about it. The logs in our eyes do matter. We need to consider what they are. They could be the beliefs that we've been taught in the past, um, as I think I just shared, among other things. But we need to talk about that. We need to really consider and discern carefully where our integrity might be compromised and how we can see things in a new way, in a much clearer way, in my opinion. We're going to close with a song, but I want to say closing words before that because I know some of you run off, and that's okay. Please, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for peace in this world. I'm praying for this community. I'm praying for, we talk about Anne Lamott's beautiful phrase from her book about prayer, and it's just simply help, thanks, and wow. And you know what? I'm crying out the help. Sometimes those are the only words you have. Friends, I encourage you to get involved in something that is making this world better. We need to be. We need to be a part of the goodness of God, of the love of God. Because if people continue thinking that God is powerful, judgmental, hate, they'll represent Jesus that way. And we have a lot of that going on right now. So we're going to close with a song. I encourage you to take a few minutes and listen to it. If you're running off, that's okay too. Just hear me say, get involved. Please, now's the time.
life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. 'Cause your goodness is running, it keeps running after me. And all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna sing. 'Cause all my life you have been faithful. And all my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. Oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
Okay, everybody, take care this week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your neighbors and your loved ones. And don't stop loving. Keep praying for our world. And once again, as always, get involved. There are so many ways to get involved in representing the good things of God. And I encourage you to do that. So take care, everybody. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Much love to all of you. Please take care. Thank you, Jan. Thanks for your comment. Yes, I agree. It starts in small pockets. Let's keep building them, okay? See you soon.